Welcome to this tutorial on Intro to Polynomial Factoring. There are two simple strategies that we are going to overview in this tutorial. First is factoring by grouping. Second will be factoring using the sum and difference of cubes. When we go to factor by grouping, we need to have four terms. We group the first two terms together, and we group the second two terms together. And for each grouping, we factor out the greatest common factor. So in magenta, the greatest common factor is 16x squared. Upon factoring it out, we would have 3x minus 1 remaining. Over in green, we want to factor out a negative 1 because then we will also have a 3x minus 1 remaining in parentheses. We should build the same thing in those two sets of parentheses because then what we want to do is we want to factor that item out of everything. So now we factor out the 3x minus 1, and in the other set of parentheses it will leave us with 16x squared from what we had in magenta and the minus 1 from what we had in green. Then look to see if we can factor the second item further. In this case, we can. We need two items that multiply to be 16x squared. That'll be a 4x and a 4x. Two items that multiply to be a 1 will be a plus 1 and a minus 1. And with this symmetrical approach to factoring, we get the middle term to disappear. So the final answer to this item would be 3x minus 1 times 4x plus 1 times 4x minus 1. That's how factoring by grouping works. Then we turn our attention to factoring by the sum and difference of cubes. What is the cubed root of 64? Well, that's 4. The cubed root of x cubed is just x. Then we look at the cubed root of 125, and that's 5. So now this will factor into two sets of parentheses. For the first parenthesis, we leave these two things alone. We have 4x, we have 5, and we keep the symbol the same. So this will remain a plus. In the second set of parentheses, we square the first item. So 4x being squared is 16x squared. The last item, we square the 5 and we get 25. It'll be a plus 25. And for the item that goes in the middle, we simply multiply these two items together. 4x times 5 will be a 20x. And though we have formulas, when we explained this in class, we indicated that the easiest way to remember it is there will be one minus sign in your final answer. We don't yet have it, so this will be our negative symbol. And what we have written as the factors would be our final answer. Yes, we should check to see if we could factor the second set of parentheses, but typically, with sum and difference of cubes, that second item is prime. So here's the final problem we will consider. It's a difference of cubes. 2x cubed minus 686. The first thing that's going through my mind is 2 is not a perfect cube. But watch for a greatest common factor. If we begin by factoring out the greatest common factor from both items, we might get somewhere. X cubed is a perfect cube. It's the cube of x. 343 is a perfect cube. Now, if you're not entirely sure what it is, go to the math menu. There's this fourth option of the cubed root. So cubed root of 343 is 7. So what we can do is we can just say, oh, that's going to be a 7, and now we'll factor by the difference of cubes. Yes, we have a formula, but think it through. So the first set of parentheses, we're just going to have the x, and we're going to have the 7. Keep the symbol the same, so it will remain a negative. In the other set of parentheses, square the first item, it's x squared. Square the last item, it'll be a plus 49. And in the middle, we put their product. So it's going to be a 7x. And remember, there's only one minus sign in your final answer. We've already used it. This will be a plus sign. And here is the final answer to the factoring of our original problem. Again, we want to see if that last set of parentheses can factor, but typically it can't. It's usually prime. Two numbers that multiply to be 49 and add to be 7, we can't find any that work. So overall, Sum and difference of cubes are when you have two terms that are perfect cubes. Perhaps you have to watch for that greatest common factor first. And the other item that we did was factor by grouping, where there are four total terms.